Following the huge success of Superman 1, a sequel was inevitable. In fact, Superman 2 began filming simultaneously with Superman 1, and 75% of it was filmed before the release of the first film. Yet filming was halted, and the director was fired by the time Superman 2 came out, and an additional $55 million had to be spent on reshoots. So what went wrong with the troubled production of Superman 2? Let's take a look. I'm Firelink Frontier and welcome to the channel. On this channel I discuss films, TV shows and video games. So to understand what went wrong with Superman 2, we need to go back to the middle of filming of Superman the movie. Superman 1 and 2 were being filmed simultaneously, but tensions were rising between the producers, Ilya and Alexander Salkind, Pierre Spengler, and the director Richard Donner. Their concerns were regarding the escalating production budget and production schedule. Donner responded by claiming he was never given a budget. Richard Lester, who worked with the Salkinds previously, as director for The Three Musketeers in 1973 and The Four Musketeers in 1974, joined production as an uncredited associate producer. He worked to mediate the relationship between Richard Donner and the Salkinds, who were no longer on speaking terms. With months left of filming on Superman 2, the Salkinds halted production on the film, which Donner had completed 75% of, to focus on Superman 1. After the release of the first film, a Variety columnist, Army Archerd, encountered Spengler at a Christmas party. Spengler confirmed that there had been tensions, but that he was proud of the film nevertheless, and looked forward to working with Richard Donner on the second film. Army Archerd then contacted Richard Donner, who responded, "If he's on it, I'm not." On March the 15th, 1979, the Salkinds decided to replace Donner with Richard Lester. The decision was controversial among the cast. The late Gene Hackman refused to do reshoots, and a body double had to be used in some reshoots. He later refused to return for Superman 3, as the Salkinds were still involved. The creative consultant Tom Mankiewicz also refused to return out of loyalty to Richard Donner. The Superman co-writers, David and Leslie Newman, were brought back to rewrite sections of the script. The new script featured additional scenes, such as a new opening involving Superman stopping terrorists detonating a hydrogen bomb at the Eiffel Tower, Clark rescuing Lois at the Niagara Falls, and a new ending in which Clark causes Lois Lane to forget his secret identity through a kiss. Christopher Reeve was initially unavailable for filming, and the Salkinds filed a lawsuit against Reeve, alleging he had breached his contract by walking off the sequel. Reeve also had reservations with Lester and the Newman script following the departure of Donner. John Williams, who scored the original film, was supposed to return, but he and Ilya Salkind got into an argument, with Williams saying he could not get along with this man. Ken Thorne was brought in to replace him and score the sequel. So with all those problems, the film was finally released in 1980, and strangely enough this is my favourite Superman film. Sure, it has elements where it becomes silly, like the cellophane S being thrown at Zod, and the whole kiss thing that makes Lois forget, and also the slapstick comedy that Lester brought, but it's still a great film. The film begins with a recap of the plotline that was started in the first film, with Zod, Ursa and Non, three criminals on Krypton who were banished to the Phantom Zone. Meanwhile on Earth, Superman has to stop a terrorist plot. When Superman fires the bomb from Earth, its shockwave shatters the Phantom Zone, freeing the three criminals. They land on the moon and soon discover they have superpowers from the yellow sun. They continue to Earth and plan to take over. Clark Kent and Lois Lane, meanwhile, are at Niagara Falls. Lois Lane begins to suspect that Clark Kent is Superman, and she jumps off the falls in an attempt to get Superman to rescue her, but Clark Kent saves her. It's not until Clark trips and falls into a fire and comes out unscathed that Lois Lane realises he's Superman. They go to the Fortress of Solitude, and Clark agrees to become mortal, to spend the rest of his life with Lois. We see this plotline in a lot of superhero films now, where the superhero loses his powers and has to get them back. But I like this plotline, although in the film he seems to decide very quickly that he wants to give up being Superman. Zod, Ursa and Non take over, and Clark is now powerless to stop them. A trucker in a diner harasses Lois, and Clark is unable to defend her and gets beaten up. The President asks Superman for help on TV. Clark realises the mistake he's made, and has to go back to the Fortress of Solitude to get his powers back. Lex Luthor is also helping Zod, and they go to the Daily Planet. In by far the best moment of the film, Superman appears. We see the rustling of papers, and Superman flying to the window. Even Lex Luthor is relieved to see him back, as his alliance with Zod had been uneasy at best. The Kryptonians battle, and I still enjoy this fight even watching now. The effects aren't as good as today's films, but I still enjoy it anyway. Zod realises that Superman cares about the people. He uses this to his advantage by trying to harm innocent bystanders. Superman flies off in an attempt to lure them away to the Fortress of Solitude. We get these weird scenes that seem to be out of a video game, where he generates different holograms of himself, and the part with the cellophane S that he chucks at Zod. This is one of the elements that I don't like about the Superman films, where they just start adding random powers, as it takes the stakes out of the film. Superman tricks Lex Luthor into telling Zod that the crystal chamber will remove Superman's powers, but Superman reconfigures the chamber to work only on the outside, with him being kept safe inside. This deprives Zod of his powers. He pretends to swear loyalty to Zod, finally kneeling in front of him, but he instead crushes his hand. With the villains defeated, they go back to the Daily Planet, and Clark kisses Lois, making her forget his secret identity. Yes, it's a silly plotline, and I have no idea how that works. Clark returns to the diner where he got beaten up, now with his powers back, to get even. The film ends with Superman replacing the American flag on the White House, and telling the president that he won't abandon his duty again. We see again the iconic smile at the camera before the film ends. This film is by far my favourite Superman. It has a great setup and payoff, with Superman losing and regaining his powers, and getting even with the trucker, and it also has some great villains. I love Terence Stamp as Zod. I miss the films where we had a good British villain. For some reason the British accent works well with villains. Also, I'm not sure why, but why are all the heroes British now? Like Robert Pattinson as Batman, and Henry Cavill as Superman. I also had no idea for ages that Christian Bale was British. I like Ken Thorne's Superman theme as well. It's slightly different than John Williams, but when Clark's ship crashes through the roof during the opening credits, it always makes me feel nostalgic. The film received positive reviews upon its release, and made $216.3 million at the box office. This still remains one of my favourite superhero films, and my favourite Superman film, out of all of the ones that I've seen. I'm Firelink Frontier, and thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.